1190 AM, NBC News, and the best in specialty programming.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station or Clear Channel Communications. Saddle up, America. It's time for the concierge of conservatism, The Wayne Richards Show. Stand with Wayne and stand for liberty.
I was born by God's dear grace in an extraordinary place where the stars and stripes and the eagle fly.
And now, here's your host, Wayne Richards.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Wayne Richards Show. I'm your host, Wayne Richard, and we're broadcasting live today from the beautiful studios here in Dallas, Texas. And for those of you who tune in each week, you know that for the past few weeks I've had only 30 minutes, but we are back to a full hour. Ted Cruz. Well, it does apply. The people recognize it. The gun owners of America recognize it. And luckily, a lot of our representatives recognize it. And my guest today recognizes it. In fact, here in Texas, they're in session right now. You know, in Texas, they go into session once every 2 years for about a 5-month period, and they're in their 83rd session. And the grassroots really had their act together this year in Texas, and we were successful in voting in a lot of freshmen that were aligned with the principles of the Tea Party and conservative move of the Constitution. I like to call them the fantastic freshmen. And today on the show, on the Wayne Richards Show, we have one of those fantastic freshmen, and his name is Gio Capriglione. Did I get that right, Giovanni?
Yep, that's it.
You know, a couple of weeks ago when we were at an event, and it was the North Texas Tarrant County Tea Party event, and you were there, and I had an opportunity to introduce you, and I really struggled to make sure I got that name right, and I knew I'd be doing it again in the future, so thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Wayne. Thanks for inviting me.
Couple of things I want to touch upon today, and the first thing I want to ask you, and this is kind of a broad question, give everybody an understanding how this works, because I'm sure they're curious about it. From what you were expecting walking into Austin as a freshman representative, and what you've experienced now in about the last 60 days or so, give us your impression and what your thoughts are on that particular issue.
Yeah, I think we all expected a lot of different things in terms of how to get bills go through the legislature, how to deal with constituents and make sure that we're supporting them appropriately. I guess today, what I would say, it's about 100 times more intense than I thought when I first stepped in. It's a very busy time, but I would say that you have a good adjective, which is the fantastic freshman, because there's about 41 new freshmen into the State House this year. 29 of them are Republicans. Most of those are very conservative, and it's been great. We've bonded, and a lot of us, although we come from different parts of Texas, have a lot of the same philosophy. So we're all kind of leaning on each other right now.
Now, you're a representative, and you're from South Lake. What's your district again?
So, sure, I'm in District 98, the northeast part of Tarrant County, just west of the DFW airport.
And there were about, 5 freshmen that came from your part of the state, correct?
There are 5 of the 11 representatives of Tarrant County, 5 new Republican freshmen and 2 new Democrat. So 7 of the 11 are freshmen.
I see. So, well, let's get into some of the bills, because, the way I'm looking at this, you kind of stepped up and taken on a leadership position, kind of like Ted Cruz did, that when you were a freshman in Congress, when you were a freshman here in the House of Representatives or the Senate, they pretty much expect you to kind of just be quiet, mind your manners, and just be happy that you're there, and kind of go along to get along. But you and a lot of the other new fantastic freshmen have not done that. And there's a couple of bills I want to touch upon that are important. And one of them that I was just talking about here early was that the Second Amendment, because you've introduced House Bill 706 that basically would allow adult concealed handgun licensees to protect themselves in buildings and facilities located on campus of a public college or university. And you're getting some pushback on that. Why don't you talk a little bit about why you introduced that bill, what your thoughts are, and what you think this would accomplish for the citizens of Texas?
Sure, absolutely. And I did file HB 706, which is campus carry. My joint authors include Representative Jeff Leach, who is in your part of neighborhood there in Collin County, Reno area, and also Stephanie Click. There was a total of 4 campus carry bills that were filed. The reason we filed it, Jeff Leach and I and Stephanie Click, is because we just feel that gun ownership is part of the Second Amendment, and it's a liberty issue. These gun-free zones don't work. What effectively these gun-free zones say is that if you're a law-abiding citizen, you can't come here. Only criminals are allowed on campus and carry their weapons. You go and you look at the safety issue. You can see that there's a lot of sexual assaults on campuses, a lot of robberies, a lot of those types of just a whole bunch of crimes that are occurring on campus, and a lot of us feel that they're just wide open areas. I mean, if you're a criminal and you say, hey, there's a huge stretch, there's kids with guns, kids with money, and there's no one there to protect them. So that's why we ended up filing that, as well as with the liberty issues.
Now, this goes to, for people that don't necessarily know how this works, I mean, you file a bill, and then it goes to a particular committee.
Right.
And then the committee, they have a chance to kind of massage it and modify it somewhat. And then it goes out to the floor where all the other representatives have a chance to kind of ask you questions about that. Have you already completed that part of the process?
Right. So what I'll say, so we filed our bill, and on Thursday was the first hearing, the first public hearing. I would say it was probably the biggest public hearing this week. There were probably between 100 and 150 different people doing public testimony.
Now, this can be anyone to give public testimony. It's basically just any citizen that has an interest in a particular bill can come down to Austin and they can share their thoughts on a bill, correct?
That's right. And right, you just have to register electronically when you come in, and if you have a bill that you're interested in, you just sign up electronically and you can come speak. And in this case, because there were just so many people wanting to discuss this particular issue, that the chairman kept it to 3-minute testimonies we give. But we had everyone from military students who are on campus to police departments to parents to teachers, all testifying for and against concealed carry on campus.
Now, I understand, I'm a very pro Second Amendment person, so I have a difficult time figuring out what somebody's problem could be. If you want to identify, like, what's the top issue that one of the non-proponents of this bill were, what are they saying is the reason why people should not have this right? Well,
I'll tell you, one of the first testimonies was from a young woman from who I guess is on UT, and her belief is that, if I could get her quote right, her belief was that the only people that should have guns are government officials. And so you're on that side. There's a lot of people who think that, hey, this is going to allow drunk college students to go and have guns on campus. But that's not accurate at all. You have to be 21 years old. You have to have completed and received a concealed handgun license. So it's pretty much a high barrier. The reality is, and the practical aspects of this, is that it would allow professors and teachers and faculty to feel safe.
Would you say the majority of the people were pro or con the bill?
Most of the people that testified, I would say, is probably 2-1 in favor. And I'll also say that the chairman of the committee, because at the end of the day, the chairman of each one of these committees is really going to decide if and when there's a vote. And I would say that this chairman was very, very fair and unbiased and seemed to be listening to all of the testimony very attentively. So I think a lot of this decision is going to happen in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But, by filing 4 different bills, everyone from freshmen like Jeff Leach and Stephanie Click and myself, all the way to more senior members, what we're showing is that there's broad support for this type of bills in the House.
Now, this is the State Affairs Committee, correct?
No, this actually went to the Public Safety Committee. And so there were gun bills can go. So whenever there's a bill, it's decided in which committee it's going to go to. So State Affairs gets some bills, let's say, related to this. We have a Sovereignty Committee, which might talk about more federal issues. And in this case, it went to Public Safety, Homeland Security Committee. And this would, and I mean, you could also have made the case that this could go to a higher ed committee, but this one ended up going to the Public Safety Committee.
And who's the chairman of the committee?
The chairman of this committee is Representative Chairman Pickett. And he, like I said, I think did a really good job in being fair. I think there's a total of 9 other members, and it was a long day for them. I think it was about 6 or 7 hours just for campus carry, and then I know after that they did open carry and other gun bills. Which was the bill that Jeff Leach introduced? Well, Jeff Leach and he was the joint author on the campus carry bill, the 706. 706. He may have filed other bills. He did also a sales tax exemption for one day to buy handguns.
Yes, and I referenced that in a previous show too. We're going to take a break here just for two commercials, and then we'll be right back. And when we come back, I want to talk to you about your other bill that you introduced, HB 524, basically a financial disclosure. And this had a lot of heat for you, and people are behind you on it. So you're listening to the Wayne Richards Show. We'll be back in just a moment. We're talking to Giovanni Capriglione.
America. You're listening to the concierge of conservatism, Wayne Richards. Stand with Wayne and stand for liberty.
And we're back to the Wayne Richards Show, and we're talking this afternoon with State of Texas Representative freshman Giovanni Capriglione. And Giovanni, rather, I would like to talk to you a little bit about this next bill, and it's actually Bill HB 524, and has to do with transparency. But before we get into it, I want the audience to hear, I went to your website, your Facebook site, and I looked at some of the comments that people are putting out there regarding this bill, and this has to be so encouraging for you. Let me kind of read a couple of these off. I feel like Ted Cruz reading off some of the Twitters for Rand Paul. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. How true is that? Excellent. The public needs your bill. I'm so proud of you for taking the high road and showing what a true leader looks like. Giovanni, that is so true. This bill will be the focus of the next North Texas Tea Party, the Tarrant County Tea Party citizen lobbyist trip this month. I'm going to get into that in just a moment. Keep up the good work. Stand strong, and here we go. I ended my show last week with Stand with Rand, because, I've got Stand with Wayne. I closed it with Stand with... Here's the next one. This is going to be Go Gio.
I like it.
I'm going to push Go Gio from this point forward.
Nice.
Now, when you introduced this bill, I think that you probably got hammered, unlike anything you had expected. And I was reading articles on the Texas Tribune where the person that you ran against, Vicki Truitt, she blasted you and said this was a personal vendetta for you to introduce this particular bill. And then it says also there was an article, freshman lawmaker gets a lesson in PAC behavior. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what this bill is, why you're introducing it, which was really kind of pushed by your constituents. Your constituents asked for this bill.
That's right.
So explain to the audience what this bill does and why it's important for this bill to be enacted.
Sure. So I like the Go Gio thing, by the way.
Go Gio.
So what this bill does is HB 524, and what it says is that if you are either running for elected office or if you are already in an elected position, that you should disclose on your personal financial disclosure form all your businesses, which we have now, which businesses you're owner of, whether you or your close family members have contracts with government entities.
Now, that's what you're proposing.
That's what I'm proposing, and a lot of times when I propose that, a lot of, non-elected officials, just voters and citizens will say, what, you mean you don't have to disclose that already? And the answer is no, and so that's what I'm proposing. And as part of my campaign and transparency, there's life, transparency, Second Amendment, there's a lot of things that I campaigned on it, and this is one particular issue that I made a focal point of my campaign about a year ago. So I feel as if not only is that it's needed, but it's a promise that I've made to go and continue to fight for this.
Well, let's expand on it a little bit more. I want to make sure that the audience gets this. Sometimes, we talk about these issues and we're so familiar with it, we don't recognize. So basically, and you may know this, but I ran for the Texas House of Representatives several years ago. And so when I ran, I had to fill out a financial disclosure that basically identified what my personal assets were.
Right.
My assets and my wife's assets. But what you're asking, and I think this is logical, is say, Wayne, well, who do you do business with? Who does your wife do business with? I mean, do you have close family members that, if I were to introduce a particular bill, that you could potentially benefit financially or some other means?
That's right.
So that people understand where that relationship might be, so that basically what that does is it kind of negates an issue where there's a conflict of interest.
That's right. And my point also is that, hey, I'm not saying you can't do that kind of stuff. All I'm saying is what I'm saying is that voters should have the opportunity to decide for themselves or not if they think that was a conflict of interest. But also what it does is it keeps everyone, like we said before, sunlight being the best disinfectant, is, hey, everyone can go and look at the bills you've been filing and just, everyone's clear that you're not filing bills that could directly show a conflict of interest.
Well, when the Texas Tribune makes that statement that the lawmaker gets a lesson in PAC behavior, I would almost think that it's the way when I read that article, I was thinking, okay, how can somebody kind of push back against this? It's kind of like when somebody introduces a bill about protecting puppies.
Yeah.
It's almost like, you can't vote against it, regardless of what the bill is actually saying. And if they say it's to protect the puppy, boy, you got to have backbone to vote no on that.
Sure.
So you reverse this, then you take it to the other side of the spectrum. This is all about disclosure. This is a financial component. How does a representative get up and defend their ability to keep people in the dark and keep secrets about what their financial benefits might be by writing a particular piece of legislation? Who is willing to do that, and what were their arguments saying that this is a poorly written bill or something that we should not institute here in Texas?
Well, to be honest with you, I think it's exactly what you said. I think it's really hard to go and say that you're opposed to this kind of disclosure because, again, quite frankly, people support it. I think there have been a lot of groups that have gone out, both pro-transparency groups like the media and other groups who have asked voters across the state to support it with their state representative. And I heard that just one group alone has sent over 1,000 emails sent to state reps all over the state and in the House to go and support this bill. So I don't think it's something that it's easy for someone to go and oppose. But part of it too, and I'll say this, is that all freshmen go through a little hazing, and I guess that's a ritual here. But I think at the end of the day, what we're going to see is that most people that were opposed to it, or at least look like they're opposed to it, well, I think since that time, all of them have been very open in the bill, and I'm really hoping very soon that we'll have a bill out on the House floor.
Now, when we talked about HB 706, you said the chairman of the committee was aligned with it, and he was, very sympathetic towards it and trying to help it along. Is this particular bill, HB 524, is this within State Affairs?
This one is in State Affairs, and State Affairs, for your listeners, is one of the most important committees, and it's made up of mostly committee chairs of other committees. So it's the most senior group of members, and so yeah, this is in that committee. And I had my first hearing, and what we're doing now is we're in the what's called the committee substitute stage, where we go and I take the input from the members from that particular hearing, maybe make some changes, and then request a vote again.
And Byron Cook is the chairman of this committee?
Yes, he is.
Of the State Affairs Committee.
Yes.
There's been several issues that the Wayne Richards Show has been addressing over the last few months, and I'd like to kind of get your feedback because there are bills that are being introduced regarding it, and one of them has to do with C-scope. I'm assuming you're kind of familiar with that issue somewhat?
That's right, yep.
Okay, so I'm assuming that the bill that was submitted, the way Dan Patrick is the chairman of the Education Committee, he put through a bill about the C-scope. Are you aligned with what that bill is?
Yes, I'm opposed to C-scope, and at the end of the day, we have to make sure that a lot more local control, and specifically parents, get a view of what the curriculums are at the schools that their students attend.
Now, that would also entail then the State Board of Education, because by law, Texas law stipulates the State Board of Education has the right, or the requirement actually, to review all curriculum for Texas school books, correct?
Right.
And that's where the loophole was, because C-scope was online, so they were pretty much saying, well, that doesn't fit within the parameters of what the state law is, so that's why they thought they could do this and not have anybody review it?
That's right. That's what they thought. I'll also make a point that that a lot of this is done through what's called regional service centers across the state, and so I filed a bill that would dramatically reduce their budget, because in my opinion, there's one part, and I do support using law to make sure that we handle C-scope and review everything that's going on. But on the other hand, I say, you know what, there has to be some sort of financial punishment, okay? Because if you're going to mismanage your service, then your particular division or department should be punished by less financial revenue. Now,
this might be outside the purview, the responsibility of the House of Representatives and the Senate, but they claim that when C-scope modified their charter and they created themselves as a nonprofit, that they broke the law. And there are people that are claiming that the Attorney General, Greg Abbott, should actually do an investigation and pursue criminal charges against the individuals of the board of C-scope. Is that something that the State of Representatives or the Senate would get involved in that, or is that completely outside the purview of the legislature?
I found very little outside of the purview of the legislature, but what I would like, I think the Attorney General has the right and definitely ability, and there's a lot of desire for people all over Texas for him to start investigating and seeing what to do there. To be honest with you, I think that, there's been a lot of public backlash over this, and I would be surprised if there aren't major changes in all of that.
Now, you say there is a bill that was introduced to defund severely C-scope. Do you remember what percentage they're saying they want to defund it by?
Oh, well, that's my bill, and I said 100%.
Oh, so you basically want to defund the entire C-scope organization?
That's right, yeah.
Now, what C-scope claims, and I've moderated a couple of events where top leadership from some of the regions were there, and, they're presenting this as though you can't just turn off C-scope because the teachers won't be able to teach, that the children will not be prepared for the various, TEKS, the tests, et cetera. Is there any truth to that?
But there's a lot of other things going on at the same time, which is we're all working. There's HB 5, for instance, which limits the total number of those tests and changes what those tests are actually doing. So I would say that over the next few weeks, what you're going to see is a whole revamp of the testing, the accountability in general, and I think that C-scope will just be something that's also modified in all that curriculum as well.
What's the chance of that bill going through? Passing, not just going through, passing.
Dan Patrick's, I would say pretty good. I feel as if there's a lot of conservatives in the State House, and I think that's a target, so I feel good about it. I'm not sure where it is in the process, to be honest with you, because I think that's on the Senate side and on the House side. I'm not a joint author on those, but there'll be a public, if people are interested, I was saying on your show, if there'll be a public education hearing on that, I'm sure relatively soon, and just keep an eye on that, and of course you can always come by to Austin and testify against it or for it.
Yeah. Now, another issue, and you're probably familiar with this as well, and you may have had an opportunity or had one of your aides attend. 2 weeks ago, we had a forum, and I was the moderator for the forum down in Austin regarding smart meters.
Yep.
And it was actually organized and put together by Texas Eagle Forum, which is a pretty powerful organization, citizens advocacy group. Did you have anybody attend that by any chance?
I think one of my staff members attended it. I was in a government efficiency and reform hearing at the time, but I do believe went to that.
Well, I do remember also that there was a caucus that was called regarding Medicare. So that kind of crimped in, and that's why.
Oh, that's right. That was going on at 1 o'clock.
Right, but from what I understood, they kept a tally, and we heard that there were over 80 representatives or aides from the representatives that attended that group.
Wow. Okay. Good.
Meeting. So we were very excited and encouraged about that. Are you familiar with the nuances and the issues that the citizens are concerned about with smart meters? Have you had a chance to kind of sit down and educate yourself on that?
I've looked at it quite a bit. I would say that before session started, before January 8th, it was probably the number one email trail I was getting was regarding the smart meter issues. There's privacy issues, of course. There's electromagnetic and safety issues. For me personally, the number one issue is the privacy issue. There's even, of course, private property rights and all that kind of stuff. But I guess what I'm most sensitive to is making sure that the government can't go and get access to the information that's collected and generated from your electrical usage.
So the audience needs to recognize the way this happens, or the way this would actually take place, is the smart meter has 2 chips built into it. One that actually captures the overall wattage consumption that a particular residence or a business utilizes, and then there's a second chip that's basically a controller, and it's like a mini computer. And with the new appliances that are being sold as of, I believe it's 2013, that chip will be able to communicate with the various appliances in your home. So when you turn on your oven or set your particular thermostat, that information is then transmitted to the chip in the smart meter, and then that information is available. Now, the power companies, the TDUs are saying that we're not going to utilize that information, but we're concerned about the fact that, well, if they've got that chip in there, they spend a lot of money to put that little computer in there. Eventually, they will use that, and that's our privacy, that's our rights.
Sure.
That's intellectual property that you should have no right to have access to that. And then the next step is they're concerned that it actually has the ability then to go in and control your various appliances to where they can turn off your dishwasher at a certain time during the day, or go in and proactively change the thermostat in your home. So there's a couple of different components built into that. And something came across my desk here that I thought was kind of important, because, and I preface this with you, Giovanni, because, Dennis Bondman, when he first wrote the smart meter bill, bill, the PUC interpreted it wrong. It was not mandatory for people to have a smart meter installed, and that's the way the power companies and TUs are kind of presenting this, like you have no choice. There's a House Bill 1600 that was submitted, and I believe it was actually submitted out of the State Affairs Committee from Byron Cook. And there's a particular subchapter in there, and I'm just going to give you a heads up on this thing because we're concerned. In subchapter D, it discusses a cease and desist authority that would be turned over to the PUC. And the way we understand it, and understand it was a state government attorney that actually wrote the bill. Okay. And when there were questions delivered to him about this, it was kind of ambiguous as to who they were referring to on the cease and desist component. And what we're concerned about is the way it was written in that subchapter D, it could theoretically incorporate individual customers or citizens to where the PUC would have the authority to cease and desist against the citizens. And it's our opinion that the only way a citizen could have a cease and desist implemented against them is through the judiciary. It has to come from the courts. It can't come from an organization. It can't come from, an independent group or committee. And so what we're looking for on that particular House Bill 1600 is they tighten up the wording on that a little bit because we're concerned that it's too broad in the PUC. Because, the way they misinterpreted Dennis Bonin's original bill, they could misinterpret this. 4 years from now, the person that wrote the bill, Byron retires and he's at the beach or something, and they don't interpret it the way he actually meant it to. So that's something I'd want us to kind of take a look at if you could.
Oh, yeah, sure. No, thanks for pointing that out. I actually, while you were talking, I brought up the bill so I can make a note on that. I think Scott Sanford, Representative Sanford from the area, was mentioning something like this in one of our meetings the other day, and I'll get with him on Monday, and we'll look at it, and if it needs to be changed, we will.
Now, one more item. I'm keeping you much longer than I thought, and I hope that's all right.
Yep.
David Simpson, he's a hero of mine.
Sure. Okay.
And, David put together a bill regarding smart meters, and he approached it from the privacy perspective, the Fourth Amendment component as well, so I'm encouraged that you're feeling the same way. Yep. He and I had talked a few weeks ago about another bill. It's the Texas Bullion Depository.
Right.
I think it's genius, and I want to kind of talk a little bit about the fact that the Governor Perry has actually put together a special committee to do an analysis to what would happen if the federal government basically went bankrupt or they stopped funding all the various edicts that they place on Texas. How would Texas maintain its sovereignty and protect ourselves financially from that type of a windfall or a loss of revenue? The Texas Bullion Depository is ingenious because it's saying that what we need to do is start bringing some gold into a depository here in Texas. Let's talk a little bit about that because I think that's important for people to recognize that we're moving in that direction.
Yeah, great. Yep, I filed the bill related to creating our own gold bullion depository here in the state of Texas. And, the thinking right now is that a certain percentage of our assets, probably through the rainy day fund, would be held in gold or other precious metal reserves. It would be in bullion form, so I guess some people are calling it the Fort Knox of Texas. And what it would do is it would allow the state to be able to have a depository, not a bank, but most people would think of it like a bank, to be able to make intra-government payments, or if individuals and corporations wanted to make payments to the various agencies and departments. And what it essentially does is it says, hey, we've got this gold here in the state, and it creates this stability. And it's important for two things. One, of course, none of us want any kind of fiscal or economic collapse. But at the same time, I think it hedges against that, both from an inflation perspective and just from, secondly, which is, if people are assured that there's strong assets to back what they believe to be their money, then I think things are less likely to go into an economic collapse.
So basically what they're saying is they would have true gold, physical gold, precious metal gold, as a backing for the various financial transactions that are taking place within the various agencies and departments of the state of Texas. Yep,
and also for others outside of the state who need to make payments to the state or from the state.
So would the transactions then actually take place in gold currency?
What would happen is, let's say, it's even though there would be actual gold backing all of this up, in some ways you can look at it as you had an account there that some of that gold would be tagged for you. Someone, let's say the person you were paying would have their account, which would also be backed by gold, and you would, through electronically, be able to move a portion of your gold in 1/1000th of a troy ounce increments to the other individual. So, the rest of the world exists in dollars, so it would be the conversion process in terms of what that would mean in amount of gold, and that would be transferred to the payee.
Okay, I want to walk through this, make sure I have a good understanding. The rainy day fund. Would the rainy day fund then be backed up by precious metal?
A portion of it, and what we leave to a committee to decide how much total gold we're going to use. There's a lot of discussion before about, some of Texas's holdings are in gold that are in other states. So the idea was, hey, should we bring our gold back here? And that's just not, one, it's not necessary, but it's also very difficult to do. But what we would do is create a portion, whether that's $500 million, $1 billion worth of gold, and put it in the vault. It turns out that the Capitol has something like 18 different vaults, 3 of which I think would be useful for this purpose. And that would be the assets that were in this depository.
Would a citizen, like when I have to pay my margins tax,
Yep.
would the state allow me to pay my margins tax in
Yes.
gold?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, and and again, the idea, it's also, I think, having talked to other people in other agencies, it's a good economic development tool because there are a lot of high net worth individuals in the rest of the country, a lot of corporations in the rest of the country who maybe aren't feeling so secure in their state in terms of the dollars that they're holding, and so it's just another thing to get people here and feel that Texas is a fiscal leader. So, when businesses go to move and decide where they're going to move, and this could be international businesses, it could be businesses from the rest of the country, say, okay, how's transportation in Texas? How's education? How's the water? How's electricity? Oh, also there's this depository which provides stability and safety.
Well, I like it.
Thank you very much.
Because I'm all over, I'm really worried about the fiat currency that we have.
Right.
We're printing with the Fed right now.
And imagine you're in California. I mean, at any given moment, who knows what's going on there? There's cities that have gone bankrupt. There's cities all over, actually, the United States that are going bankrupt. And again, when you look at things like pensions, you look at all these other liabilities that exist throughout the world, I think this is something that we need to do, which is have something to say, hey, this is real stuff we got here in Texas, and you can have some.
And also, this bill, does this not lower the like right now? You have to, if you purchase less than $1,000 worth of precious metals, you have to pay a sales tax. If you purchase more, there is no sales tax.
That's a different bill, and I think that one's by David Simpson and Wright. Today, it's kind of a weird situation that we have now. But if you buy more than $1,000 worth of gold, you don't have to pay sales tax. But if you try and buy just a small amount, which is something reasonable that normal people would buy, then you do have to pay a sales tax. And so David Simpson filed a bill to get rid of that, and that has an incredible amount of support, I think.
Yeah, and that is important for the audience to recognize. It's not just gold, but it's precious metal, so it would also be silver as well, and that's where people are buying smaller increments of it, less than $1,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Giovanni, you are a breath of fresh air, one of the fantastic freshmen, and I'm going to say this one more time, go Gio.
Thanks, Wayne, I appreciate it very much.
I appreciate all the time, and if there's anything we can ever do here on this radio show, if I can do anything for you up here in the Collin County, North Texas area, you please reach out to us, because we're all in this battle for you, and we appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thanks, Wayne, and thanks for letting me be on your show.
You have a great weekend.
You too.
We've been talking to Giovanni Capriglione, who's a freshman representative out of Tarrant County. You're listening to The Wayne Richards Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.